Just waiting for Jim and Joe to give me some good news. It's 8 o'clock. Where are you guys? Waiting for my good news. Get your fat ass online already.
Just wide receiving core.
Oh, I think it's terrible. I think it's awful. I think it's absolutely horrendous.
Wait a second. There's a penalty on the play, and I'm like,
Get ready for 2 hours of hard-hitting football talk from two men in the know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
Joining us on the phone, we have NFL prospect and future XFL player Jeremiah Spicer.
I don't know, man. I don't like to talk about myself like that, man.
Yeah. I told him if the Raiders took in Oliver, I was going to take him in the bathroom. He won twice.
Here's the last time I checked, I am got to slow your roll. Slow your roll down.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmys and the Joes.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome once again to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
what's going on, Know-It-Alls? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know Show. Ready to go, locked and loaded, ready to talk some more football. Let's go.
Woo! Oh, baby, it keeps getting better every week, huh? We got some fights, after a game is well done.
Some pay-per-view. We got a little bit of pay-per-view action.
Yeah, a little MMA and things, WWE style, helmets being
That's
thrown.
right.
What else do we get? We get some crazy
How about
touchdown
let's
dances.
talk about
We get
terrible
some-
calls?
Yeah, terrible calls. How
Yeah.
about that, too? Welcome, everybody. We are Football on the Know. We are streaming right now via Restream through Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook Live at the same time. So thank you for joining us here. It's a pleasure having you here tonight. And,
Definitely.
pass interference calls. Another one to where it was, it was a no call. So then, again, you can challenge those.
You can
The
now,
challenge
this
is
year.
thrown. So then that, it goes even to New
challenge,
York and
yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And the fans see it. Everybody sees it.
Right.
And it's a clear, foul. It was Marlon Humphreys on DeAndre Hopkins. He's clearly holding him there, has his one arm tucked behind him, and they come back and it's not overturned. Rule stands.
Let's just say what happened.
The ruling stands.
Marlon Humphrey basically molested the hell out of DeAndre Hopkins and got away with it. It was a crime. It was ridiculous for not only to be just a non-call, but also they challenge these calls. These coaches and the staff, they're challenging these calls because they're so blatant. They should automatically be called on the field, and they're not. And then when they go to review, they watch it and they actually sit there and say, "Nah, it's not pass interference." What?
Yeah.
What? Are you kidding me? Come on. The whole purpose of reviewing plays is to make sure you get it correct and right. And when they're given the opportunity, the refs right now, I understand the NFL doesn't want this rule in place, and the refs don't want this rule in place. So what are they doing? They're basically just absolutely refusing to change the calls no matter what. That's what they're doing. Because quite honestly, the NFL doesn't want the headache, and the Referees Association doesn't want the headache to put it all on them. But that's their job. So your job is to call a fair game, as fair as possible, and to, when you get an opportunity to review a potential penalty or a penalty that's already been thrown, it's to get it right. It's to make sure that these games are as fair as possible, and they're just getting it completely wrong from the jump.
Yeah, and I don't get it either too, because if what angle you're working at, the fact that we don't want to be held responsible for these calls all the
That's your
time, and why are you
job.
trying to do this? Because if you're trying to tell me the argument is, they're afraid about backlash from it not happening. You're getting more of a reaction of people clearly seeing that it is, and you not doing anything about it, to rather say you overturned a call that wasn't done before, because it's happened before on some that were smaller than something like this.
Right.
This is obvious, and that's why it's out there in the public. But I mean, if you overturn something like this, it would be in your favor. You would think the public wouldn't think so poorly of the referees. I think
Right.
if you overturn some of these, that's the reason why it finally came to fruition. This new rule and the fact that they're turning it down and shutting it down the whole way to say this is becoming a pain in the butt for the NFL and now everybody else, the fans. Why don't you just get rid of it again and go back to the way it used to be? Well, we're still going to complain like we used to
Right.
be all the time. So why not just try and get it done now?
Just
I
get
don't
it
understand
right.
it.
Get it
Especially
correct.
when it's something like this. When I saw this play again, I looked at it at first. I was like, oh, yeah, maybe not so much because I didn't see what the arm was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I said it looked pretty close. So his arm reach in there. But upon further review, when you look at it, something as clear as day that should be changed. And when it's not, that's a preposterous moment. The fact that it was a blowout game already, it didn't really matter so much for
come on.
the Texans. But if this happens in like
Gotta
the
get it
Super
right.
Bowl this season, there's going to be some major problems. And
Playoffs.
if it comes into the playoffs or the Super Bowl, you've seen how officiating the last couple of years has been different in the Super Bowl. You know, letting a little more happen or
Right.
this and this. Is it going to come down to one of these things? Or are they going
Absolutely.
to officiate it differently than they have this whole season?
No. Listen, they're creatures of habit.
Mm-hmm.
And the other problem too is, and I know I keep saying this and I'm banging the drum, but now that the NFL's decided to go away from full-time refs right now, temporarily, hopefully they bring it back, but now you have all these part-time refs back once again where they have their own jobs during the day, which is kind of crazy. They get paid very well to do Sunday football in primetime games. So they're not always in the facilities. They're not always training to view all these calls from week to week to week to try to get things right so that every referee crew has the same idea going into every week on how to call this and how to call that, how to call pass interference, how to call false starts, how to call every aspect of the game. So that way, no matter what refereeing crew you have, it's pretty fair across the board. We don't have that, and the NFL is the only sport, only professional sport right now that doesn't have full-time refs. College football has them full-time, year-round. Maybe that's why they're a little bit better officiated than the NFL. Just saying. But and you know, going back to this, it's absolutely ridiculous. Listen, an instant replay does not take that much time up. It doesn't, and it doesn't have to. So for the referees, the head referee Al Riveron in New York City, get the calls right. Just get them right. It doesn't matter if you don't want the pass interference to be reviewed, if you don't want the illegal hits to be reviewed. It doesn't matter about that. It's about getting the games fairly called and move on. That way, just like you were just saying, if we can move past that and just call the games as fair as possible, we all know there's human error, but get them called right the first time, you won't have the backlash that you do right now. You have so many irate fans and so many people that pay attention to football that it's like, wow, this game is the worst officiated game ever. I mean, it's terrible how lopsided and one-sided each week it is. Every single game has either a no call or just a blatant bad call made against whatever team it is. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's gone way too far. The NFL's got to correct this. And I have a feeling that they're just not going to bother because this is going to justify by the referees refusing to overturn pass interference or to review a play and say, yeah, that is pass interference and they should have thrown the flag. By refusing it through the whole entire season, the NFL is going to come back and they're saying, oh, yeah, okay, so we had this many challenges and this many. All right, well, it seems like we don't need to review that anymore because according to these stats, we don't need to have it because the refs haven't overturned hardly any of them. I think there's only been like 2 or 3 all season so far up to this point that they've actually overturned.
Yeah. Yes.
Unfortunately, there should have been way more. There should have been way more than 50% changed.
And I would wish I looked at the stats ahead of time on this about like which ones were they overturned to where they didn't throw the flag and which ones to where they threw it and then they changed it and said, we have to pick it up.
It's
You know what I
probably
mean?
pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I like to see which the difference is because, again, I think the worst ones are the ones that they didn't call and then they go look at it and they don't want to say, oh, yeah, now it's a penalty.
Right.
I think maybe the ones they're overturning are the ones they're calling pass interference, and then they're like, oh, no, it wasn't, and then they pick it up. You know,
But that's
I'd like to
fine.
see if that's what
Yeah,
the
exactly,
case is.
but that's
that's getting
fine
it right.
if
But
you
why
do it that
they
way.
want to get it right in the other end? Again, maybe it's
Right.
they don't want to make themselves look like that, or like this. Again, it seems to be like it's a big conspiracy. Like they're trying to say we don't want to be held accountable
Right.
for this type
Yeah.
of call here, and we shouldn't be reviewed all the time on every single play just about.
It's
But
it's going to be annoying, and we all know where this is headed. They're just trying to get rid of that rule to be able to review it, and unfortunately, it's probably comes to an end after this season. They're just going to be done with it.
Yeah. I mean,
So get ready to be
every
even
season
more
we have
irate.
something like this that go through and stuff, you know. But all right, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of other things that happened this past weekend too. It's Thursday night, right after our show on Wednesday. Thursday night, we had a crazy game with the Browns
Very
and
crazy.
the Steelers.
Yes.
It's always, you know, like a tough battle with those guys. You know, it's a rivalry. The Steelers have won since the last time they lost to the Browns was 2014, I think, and they go in there. Yes, they have Mason Rudolph starting for them, so we knew there was going to be a little tougher for them going into Cleveland. But Cleveland's been a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of team, really hot and cold. And so they go in there, and it's a really kind of a lopsided game with Cleveland really squandering a lot. They start off to like a 14-point lead early in the first quarter, and they're not able to score points again, I think, until the fourth quarter. I mean, they were on offense and still screwing up, and they were on the field most of the time. I mean, I don't know how many three and outs that Pittsburgh went through. Mason Rudolph was getting pressured all day long. He had literally no time to dish it off to anybody. Plus, James Conner is his game back or whatever and goes instantly back out. Juju Smith-Schuster.
Didn't we say he was just going to be right back
what
out?
we should have did. We got to do the, especially with the betting going on right now. We should do these prop bets. How long are going to stay back in the game? You know, we'd be making some money. But Smith-Schuster gets hit. He's got an injury. He's out. A couple of others. They just kept dropping off like flies here. And I was really disappointed in Cleveland at one point in this game. They could have really flexed and shown what they could do and kept putting points on, but they were just inept at offense at times. And you're kind of looking at yourself and you're like, how are you screwing this up? You know, I mean, Baker Mayfield was getting pressured at times and getting open, using his legs to make opportunities and get plays down the field. But other than a big play, I think it was to Jarvis Landry, and then that big play touchdown or the play to Odell Beckham Jr., their offense really didn't do a whole lot. So it was pretty embarrassing. But on the other hand of this whole thing, what everybody's talking about was funny is because once I saw they scored that last touchdown, maybe at 21-7, I shut the game off. And then all of a sudden the next day, I hear all this Myles Garrett stuff. And that's what everybody's talking about. Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph. We saw him get into it a little bit. I don't know if it was him that got called for the hands to face to Mason Rudolph in the game, earlier in the game. But it was getting physical and stuff. And now, right in the end, about 12 seconds left in the game, Myles Garrett pressures Mason Rudolph. He gets the ball off, and then he kind of drives him to the ground, and it ensues from there, Joe.
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't say drive him to the ground.
I don't exactly like not pile drivers.
Yeah, because
I mean, he finished him off to the ground.
He wrapped him up, and then he swung him around until he was able to get him down. Then he was over top of him. At that point, what proceeded to happen was a start to a whole new realm of football. So Myles Garrett is over top of him, and Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph, they shared words. There's no doubt about it. While he brought him down, Mason Rudolph was not happy that he still took him down. Rudolph was trying to get a flag thrown, but like, hey, I already got rid of the ball. You know what's up? But in the midst of all that, Myles Garrett starts to get up, but then Mason Rudolph, you know, he tries to grab the helmet of Garrett and tries to rip it off of him. Fails to do so, and then as Garrett is getting up, Rudolph starts kicking and kicks him right in the crunchies.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So then that just set Garrett right off. After that point, ends up grabbing Rudolph's helmet, ripping it completely off, and as he ripped it off of him, the offensive lineman, Pouncey there, he comes over and gets in between them and starts to push Garrett away. What Rudolph does from that point, everything could have died. There would have been no further altercation if Rudolph doesn't charge. But Rudolph, and I'm not blaming Rudolph. I'm not saying it's his fault. That's why what happened. But Rudolph got up immediately, started charging after Garrett. Garrett had the helmet in his hand to his side, and Pouncey's in between him and in between Garrett and Rudolph. And I think if Rudolph doesn't even bother charging, if he kind of just stays back and everything, I think it just dies off by itself, and there's no other further altercation happening. But instead, because he charged, he started to get in between. You saw Rudolph try to grab for his shoulder. I don't know what he was trying to plan on doing to Garrett at that point. But then, hey, you kicked me in the nuts. This is payback. So he just takes the helmet and he swings it and hits him right on top of his head. He hits Rudolph right on top of his head. And then after that point, Rudolph probably didn't know what was happening. He looked at the ref saying, hey, what's going on? Flags start going. At that point, then there was a little bit of an altercation, obviously, with a couple of the offensive linemen came over. One, I forgot who it was. Maybe it was DeCastro. I can't remember who the
Foster, I think maybe.
Foster, yeah, I think it was Foster. Comes over, he starts punching Garrett in the face mask, goes to the ground, gets broken up, and there you have round one of the pay-per-view. So, all in all, I've seen the play over and over. I've looked at it on YouTube. I've checked it out and tried to dissect it. And here's my thoughts. Was it right for Garrett to even swing the helmet? Absolutely not. Because you know what? This is a game. Everybody's getting paid millions of dollars to play this sport. It's a luxury. It's and that being said, that goes to you, John. That being said, in the end of all this, he shouldn't have swung the helmet. Bottom line, yes, there's going to be fisticuffs. It's a rivalry, and it kind of, the tempers were high, and in the moment, that's what happened. But swinging the helmet, he should have never done because he's got a family to support. He's doing this as it's a job. He's got a family to go to support. He's got to play other games. Like, you don't want to physically harm someone on purpose. So for it to get to that point, that's a no-go. But everybody who was included in this whole debacle should all be penalized in some way, shape, or form. Now, I think everybody that was involved should have suspensions. Now, to that degree, I do not agree with the NFL in saying, Garrett, you're going to be suspended for the rest of the year. That, to me, is a little crazy. When you have players by the names of Tyreek Hill, who had a history of domestic violence in college, and then on audio was caught saying and threatening his wife to be careful where she steps, and he serves no suspension, no fines, no nothing. He's playing for the Chiefs. But that's okay.
Well, the problem is with this is there's video evidence.
Doesn't matter.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. And here's the thing. They suspended Kareem Hunt. He had an 8-game suspension, Kareem Hunt, for video evidence of kicking a woman while she was down. Okay, 8-game suspension. So you mean to tell me that? And just know-it-alls, just so you know, this isn't the first time, won't be the last time this happens in the NFL. There was a D tackle for the Houston Texans, Antoine Smith, and he was going up against Richie Incognito, who at the time was with the Miami Dolphins in his prime. And things were getting heated throughout the game. All of a sudden, Antoine Smith for the Texans rips Richie Incognito's helmet off and hits him upside the head. Guess the suspension he got? A 1-game suspension. Now, I realize times are different from a few years ago to now. I get that. However, if that's a 1-game suspension for that to happen, and that's as far as it went, the Myles Garrett situation was a little bit extra. But I think, to be fair, I think Garrett should serve. He should have served a 6-game suspension. In my eyes, that's what I would have done. But then I also wouldn't have just we're going to fine Rudolph. No, Rudolph should be suspended too. It was between basically Garrett and Rudolph is the reason why everything exploded. So Rudolph may not be as a strong suspension, but yeah, I think it should be 3 or 4 games for Rudolph. You gotta put blame where it's meant to be. And Rudolph even came out publicly and said, he apologized for his reaction and and
He's
him
gotta do
even
a
and
better
he even apologized for charging at Garrett because he knew that was just going to make matters worse. I know hindsight's 20/20, but in the end, that's what happens. And it is what it is. Do I agree with the suspension that the NFL has come out with? No, I don't. But unfortunately, that's where we're at now. It's a little too egregious for my liking, and it's definitely going to hinder this defense for the Cleveland Browns losing their elite pass rusher.
John Turner joins us here tonight. He's in the house.
What's going on, John?
He says 4 games tops for Garrett and 2 games for Rudolph.
Okay,
I mean, I can see that.
Yeah.
Again, because like what you said with the whole deal, there was 2 halves at fault here, and it kind of would have been settled because what you had was Pouncey brought Myles Garrett. This is where I think we kind of went wrong here. He brought Myles Garrett over to the side, kind of break it up. And they're going to have a little bit of issue because he's getting, pulled aside by an opposite teammate, somebody on the other team. But when Rudolph got off the ground, he charged again.
Right.
And you know what happens too? People know this who even own dogs, or somebody who's even really hyped up right now, and they feel if you all of a sudden have somebody you're grabbing me, and then all of a sudden another kind comes back over here and comes at me again, you're feeling assaulted right now. Now you feel like they're in my face. I need to defend myself. You know what I mean? No matter where you are and what position, I've been in that position before, and other people have seen it before. Again, and especially if you have somebody that is kind of like full of pent-up aggression already, when you're coming at me or you're in the moment, I feel like, oh, now I'm getting pushed in the corner and I'm getting double-teamed here, because that's almost how it was. Like you said, it could have been done if they just pushed him off to the side and Mason Rudolph went off to the side and, we'll settle this.
Yeah.
But he was so amped up, too, came back in it, tried to get a couple other shots in there, and if the NFL only, I think, again, they reacted to what everybody else's reaction was. People hear helmet to the head, oh, that's egregious, throw the book at him.
Right.
And instead of saying, well, let's look at the video evidence, see what we have, break it down, and then the fines and the punishments will be levied after we look over the video.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know if they went through all that with that whole order to do that, but that would have been the smartest thing to do, and that's where I can kind of side with Myles Garrett on this situation too.
Yeah.
When, again, you're amped up. He was trying to pull your helmet off. It's clear as day. There's freeze frames all over the internet about it. Trying to do that. The extra shot to your groin, that's going to get you amped up anyways.
Oh, that's going to set you
you're getting
off.
pushed off and held by an opposing team.
Which wasn't
team.
bad because Garrett's animosity and everything wasn't directed towards the lineman.
Yeah.
He was
That's
still
what I mean.
looking at. He saw red at Rudolph. As soon as he saw Rudolph coming at him, he's like, "All right, come on."
Yeah, that's where you're feeling pushed into the corner and you have to defend yourself.
To be fair, Myles Garrett's at least got 60 pounds on the guy. He's got a
I
muscle.
know.
So, I mean, Garrett has to also realize the swinging of the helmet, yes, should have never happened. He should have thought about it. I understand he's in the moment. He's aggressive. He's pissed. But you got to think about your teammates, about your team. There's more to just your personal vendetta against the other guy. He's playing a game with teammates, for his organization, for his fans, even if you want to go that far. So he's got a lot going on. Plus, he's got his family to consider. Now, with the suspension, it's with no pay. So you just forfeit all your paychecks for the rest of the season now because the NFL decided to throw the book at you. And it's only going to hurt. It's not hurting anybody but you and your team and your family now at this point. So because he's got to hand over those checks. So it should have never got to this point. Again, you feel the same way I do. The NFL should not have gone as far as they did. But also the other funny thing that was being spun is everyone's like, well, oh my God, that's assault with a deadly weapon. And technically, it could be, but people were trying to say, oh, he could have killed him, and to an extreme rarity, possibly. But let's be honest about this. I mean, he wasn't going to die from Garrett hitting him over the helmet. I think people were saying, oh, well, he could have murdered him right on the field, and that. No, stop. There's not enough in Mason Rudolph's head.
Especially after that first concussion, maybe it would drive into another concussion. Maybe that's why he went crazy, though. He wasn't sure. Maybe he's still concussed. It has to go back to the protocol.
I just think it's blown way out of proportion, And the NFL did. They threw the book and the kitchen sink at Myles Garrett, and unfortunately, it ends his season way too short.
Yeah.
Do I agree? We both agree with a suspension for both guys majorly involved.
Yeah, and I
but
could
not,
agree with John Turner's point
right,
here too. Yeah,
but
4
not
games,
to the
2 games sounds good.
but not to
Fines.
the extension that it was. And yeah, John is right on the same wavelength as we are in terms of suspensions.
And as far as he's going through. He's trying to rebut it right now. He's going through. He talked to the NFL for 2 hours. I think it was today, trying to get it dropped or whatever. Things changed.
Yeah, he went to an appeal. Yeah.
An appeal, and what people have to realize too with some of these, I think people to understand it in what we kind of know, like traffic tickets. I mean, it's different with a traffic ticket, obviously, because you're not hitting somebody with this. But what do they do? You got speeding. We saw you do it. I saw you speed.
Right.
You went 10 miles over, whatever. But you can go to that court and say, listen, I'm going to appeal, and I'm going to try and plead
Not
bargain
guilty.
down to not guilty, but I'll
And then
plead guilty
negotiate,
to parking on pavement,
Right.
1201A. Remember that if you guys want to go into 1201A, parking on pavement. And that's what people do daily.
Right.
All the time.
All the time.
So this is why I think they levy those heavy fines or the things on it, the punishments. So you have an opportunity to come back and do this. Do they always negotiate and drop it a little bit to lesser games? Sometimes they do with certain people. Other ones, they want to try and make martyrs out of it or symbols of it, like they did with Vontaze Burfict. But Wick, you spoke about this with me off the air.
Right.
We had said that now in this decision, did you take this specific thing that he just did into account, or do you take the account that he has injured other players in other weeks this season, even last season, and suspect behavior altogether? Wrap that all in the ball and says, listen, we're putting our foot down. You got to stop this now. We're going to take care of it right now. And but as far as going through the appeals, he's going to try and bring it down to a lesser thing. Again, hopefully, maybe it'll go down to 4 or 5 or 6 games or whatever it ends up being. But for him, at least, hopefully, But we'll see. Maybe they'll just say, forget about it for this season, and we'll move on next season, start anew. Hopefully, we see a new you. That's what they'll say.
Yeah, and that's the thing that the NFL's screwing up though too is, they're giving out these suspensions and sometimes way too hard. Now look at, just to put it into perspective here. The New England Patriots, when they were found cheating in the Super Bowl, they had to forfeit a first-round pick and maybe another draft pick or 2 or something like that. But they also got fined $250,000. Both these teams got fined $250,000. The organizations, the teams. Now, what they had to do with this whole thing, I don't understand. But I'm just trying to, kind of paint a picture here. Like the Patriots, they were caught cheating, won a Super Bowl with it. They got fined $250 in a first round pick, maybe a third. I can't remember right off the top of my head right now what the penalty was, but that was it. And they won a Super Bowl. This is an incident that happened. Both teams were fined $250,000. Now, neither team obviously is forfeiting draft picks, but I'm just saying how close of or degree of a punishment it is. It's pretty close. With minus the draft picks, it's almost identical as what the Patriots, and they won the Super Bowl because of it. So this should have been classified as an incident that the NFL only rules on the incident, not totality of what Garrett has done this season. He's got a couple of unnecessary roughness penalties and some unsportsmanlike penalties throughout this year. He's got a few of them leading up to this bout that he just had. And I think that's what the NFL did is they just totaled everything up, said, hey, you know what, we're going to penalize him not just for this incident, but everything else this year. And I think that's the wrong way to do it. If you were going to do anything, fine, suspension, or anything for those other incidences, that should have happened a while ago when they happened. And the same thing, like Vontaze Burfict we bring up, is the same thing was done with Vontaze. I don't care what the NFL says. That's what was done to him. They said, wow, he's got a really bad record of all this happening before. Well, let's just throw the book at him at this point. We're not going to give him any kind of easy, we're not going to give him an appeal. We're not going to reduce it. We're just going to throw the book at him, be done with it. And that's what they did. So you're seeing the NFL mishandle certain situations as we go through the season. Some guys they come down really hard on. Other guys they don't do anything with. And then some guys, they get the book thrown at them after a few incidences happen. So, unfortunately, the NFL is just not consistent with punishing people. And everybody sees it. Every fan sees it, especially the ones that it hurts. And, again, you got officiating, which is a major problem right now in the NFL. It's hurting games week to week. And every game matters in the NFL. So, if you're playing a weaker opponent and for some reason the referees are calling it pretty one-sided for this weaker team, and that weaker team ends up beating you because of how one-sided it is, that puts you in a bind for your playoff run. So every game matters, and the officiating's being terrible. The NFL and introducing their punishments to players and teams or whatnot are so inconsistent. It's hurting the game. And unfortunately, that's another major thing that's got to get fixed.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely something that was all over the headlines or news, and something that the NFL I think doesn't want to try and tackle and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens moving forward with all that. And as far as these games this past week, not a whole lot of craziness. It was pretty easy for us in our picks and everything, and. Not too much going on and changes or surprises here.
After completely blowing it the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know. The last couple of weeks were rough, but this week we bounced back. And the Carolina game, though, what happened with Kyle Allen? He was playing well for a time to where we're saying even if Cam Newton was healthy, we would just keep Kyle Allen in. But then the Atlanta Falcons, again, now, and I've heard this this past week. I love it was on Golic and Wingo, I think, so I'll call them out on it. I love the narration about, say, now the Falcons, they've won 2 straight. Like, are they playing for their coach's job now? Is this the difference now? Dan Quinn, we want you as a coach. Now we're stepping up so we can keep you. And this is the narrative. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I'm like, he gives up. He was running the defense before. Now he just passes it aside and says, let's try me not doing this anymore. And now they have great defense, and they're getting it done. How is that show that Dan Quinn is the man to stay here in Atlanta? That should say, if anything, if you're a defensive coordinator right there and you run into defense and you're terrible at it, how do you think you're doing as a head coach right now?
That's the funny thing, though, is that Dan Quinn was originally brought in as the head coach to enforce the defense, get the defense up into the top 10 conversation in the NFL. And he's failed miserably. When he first took the job, he had a different D coordinator controlling the defense and making all the calls. And then after a little bit of a rocky start, Dan Quinn's like, oh, no, I'll take over the play calling duties. I know what I'm doing. And it got worse. And now that he's relinquished those play calling duties and the game plans every week for the last couple of weeks anyway, back to the D coordinator, all of a sudden, the defense kind of woke up, and it is the defense that we foresaw before the season even started. With all these returning healthy starters that were all hurt last season, they all come back, and now they're playing at a top level. That means that, you know what, Dan Quinn, you're not you're not a good head coach. You don't make good decisions week to week. 2, when you had control of the defense, you failed to improve until you gave it back up. So that means, I don't know, I think you're pretty expendable at this point. I think we could go in a different direction for the Atlanta Falcons, look for a newer, better head coach, and then revitalize this Falcons franchise back to its winning ways. They have all the weapons. There's no excuses, especially on offense. And that's the other thing, is their offensive coordinator who struggled mightily throughout the whole season. He's still kind of struggling here and there. Yes, he's having some success, but because of the talent on the field. But when this team comes together, we've seen the past couple of weeks, the defense is now woken up. They're playing at a high level right now. The Falcons' offense is feeding off of that. They're in turn scoring points now, and it's looking like the team that we foresaw to hopefully contend for this division. And you bring up the thing, are they playing for Dan Quinn's job? No, they're not playing for his job. They're playing for themselves. They want to win. No team wants to keep losing. I like the whole thing where everyone's like, oh, well, is the Dolphins tanking? Is the Bengals tanking? And I don't think nobody's tanking because I'll tell you this right now. The Raiders got a surprise this week when the Bengals came to Oakland, and there was fight. They were fighting every minute of that game, trying to win that game. You saw how close it ended up. Only by a touchdown, the Raiders were able to pull it off. So that shows me that nobody's tanking in this league. Come on.
Especially if you look at it as players right now, what's the
There's pride.
Everybody's talking about.
There's definitely
not
pride.
even pride, but I mean they're less loyal to their team. I'd say in this generation now, or this NFL, than say 20 years ago. Like Phil Simms, you'd see him as a giant always. For him to switch to another team. I think some of these other players, like they would, they're not looking in their minds like, well, we should tank this year, so then next year I'll be here, and then we'll be a better team where we can get some more players. Maybe some of the guys that are there long term would possibly think that way, but that's more of a management type of mentality, not a player's mentality.
Right, but when you're talking about Phil Simms years ago, is a way different NFL than now because now you have free agency. And
yeah,
you have,
the free agency that's moving. So that's what I'm saying. For players to think that way, I think is preposterous in the sense that we should tank for our team, and next year we'll be better. Some of these guys we saw already before the trade deadline, they were just moved.
But
so they don't even have some of the same players.
But that's why I say pride because
Exactly.
it is exactly that. These guys are playing for not only just each other, but they're playing for themselves too. They don't want to keep losing. I mean, Jim, I don't know. Do you like losing all the time?
No.
I know. I don't. I hate losing.
Yeah, I know.
So you're playing no matter what. Your team might not be as good, but you're still going to give it your all every week. So I think it's absolutely preposterous. It's ridiculous that people think teams are tanking.
And one of the other highlights, I think, for this past week with the games, I would just bring up quick, too, is the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans game. What happened there? They just totally dismantled them.
Easy.
And the Texans just couldn't get it done.
No, here's the thing, too, is, I know this was like the big game of the week. Everyone was brewing up for it. I was excited for it, too. But the Texans have a weak secondary. They still do. There's nothing there to stop them. The big strength was their front seven. And the front seven got confused. I'll tell you right now, the Ravens offense, their running ability and their trick plays that they've kind of brewed up in this offense with Lamar Jackson and other moving pieces and Mark Ingram in the backfield. And you even have receivers getting in on this where it's like a triple option where he could go a lot of different ways with it. And next thing you know, it's the fullback running over there. And you're like, where's the ball? Oh, the ball's down there. This offense is so hard to game plan for. It's so hard to diagnose and figure out just who has the ball until it's too late. Lamar Jackson, incredible athlete. We all knew that coming out of college. And to his credit, he's making it work. I know I'm going to call myself out. I didn't think he was going to survive in the NFL. I didn't think he was going to be as good. Now, he's not a pure quarterback. I'm still hammering on that. Still not a pure quarterback. Can't make all the throws, but he makes enough throws to make a difference. And with this running game, this offense is it's becoming unbeatable at times. We've seen him take out the Patriots right now.
Yeah,
and they keep rolling through opponent after opponent. The Texans were the next, I guess, tough matchup that people were saying. Well, the Texans can score. Yes, they could score. But this young, talented defense every single week is getting a little bit better. And with the addition of Marcus Peters now, opposite Marlon Humphrey, wow, this secondary is really coming together. It's scary at this point.
Yeah, big time. That was a big difference for them, moving forward for the Ravens. And now, they look like the team. It's to where people aren't even putting the Patriots in the conversation anymore.
Have you seen the Patriots offense?
Yeah, I know. And what's funny, too, is when people are talking now in the narrative with Tom Brady, he's gone, I think, 3 games now without really performing or putting a lot of passing, and getting it done. And he's not getting any, slack for it. What's the matter with him? Is he aging?
That's a golden boy.
Instead, the narrative switches to, well, he becomes a free agent, so after he's done with the Patriots, is he just going to move on? How about him going to the Los Angeles Chargers with their offensive coordinator, and then just move in there and go there? How about this dream job?
Because that
go to
new
nice sunny
offensive
LA.
coordinator is so good.
Yes.
You fired Ken Wisenhunt. Brilliant move, Chargers. Brilliant. Because your offense got worse after you fired Ken Wisenhunt. You're trying to point the blame at that guy? That guy improved your offense. Your weaponry is depleting. You have no offensive line at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you expect to have? You got 2 great running backs, but
Mm-hmm.
and Keenan Allen is still healthy, which is almost a miracle in itself. But Hunter Henry also is healthy, but that's it. There's nothing else to get excited about.
And there's a few other teams people that bounced around, and maybe
Yeah.
Tom Brady where we go. So I think this offseason is going to be pretty crazy with the contracts running out and certain quarterbacks, and we'll see what the shuffling does with all these guys. Our class from 2007, you know, that the Eli Mannings, the Ben Roethlisberger, the Phillip Rivers. Now we get to see what's going on with them. They're all starting to lose a tick here and playing, and we'll see what goes on moving forward with those guys and some of the
Sure.
others. But let's move on to our In the Know. It's time for our In the Know fact of the day. Yes, fact of the day. I found a nice, interesting one here today, Joe. It's a little short for our usual standards, but here we go. It says, I found this little stat here. The NFL
we got?
requires that all stadiums be built facing north and south so that the sun never interferes with a play. Yeah, if you ever noticed that, you know, all the fields are north and south. You're going to pick the north end or the south end, and they have their cameras set right at the sidelines, each sidelines. Right. So, I mean, I'm sure that helps with cameras, you know, not even the play of the players working.
Right, yeah.
But mainly, I think even filming, that works well. But the players, I'm sure it helps too, not staring, or kickers even, directly in that sun while you're trying to kick.
Yeah.
And
It's funny because I remember the Dallas Cowboys. They've had games when they open up the rooftop,
yes.
and depending on which direction you're going, you're getting sun in your eyes the whole time.
Yeah.
For that window of the sun coming in. So
Well, maybe they don't understand the north and south.
maybe they went
screwed
east
it
and
up.
west. I mean, maybe some teams are, taking an
Yeah,
alternate
I hear you
route.
though too, because I think even they have glass on that one end, don't they, or something that
Right.
shines through a little bit there.
Well, you look at now the new Vegas
Indianapolis,
stadium.
I thought was kind of like that a little bit, but
Yeah, you look at the new Vegas stadium where they have the opening trap doors
Mm-hmm.
on one end where it just opens right up. Now I wonder if that, I'm just saying maybe there's a whole strategy involved
Mm-hmm.
with that too.
yeah, it's interesting there. But I mean, at one point we always see players that are actually playing out in the sun,
Right.
You know, still be affected by the sunlight either
Yeah,
way
it
though,
still
because you're
can
going to
happen.
see it it's up in the sky, especially
Right.
even around 1 o'clock games.
Yep.
It's right there, and it
Yeah.
could change sides either way when you're playing. So, but that's an interesting fact. I didn't know that
That's
one
pretty
there,
cool,
but
though.
That's cool.
Yeah, I
some
didn't know
people
that
don't
either.
And so, yeah. So moving on here, we were just talking about the man, the myth, the legend, Phillip Rivers here. Let's bring up his career stats now. So the question I ask here now is possibly this is the last season here with the Los Angeles Chargers, because his contract runs out this season at the end of the season.
I mean,
So,
I think at some point the Chargers knew this day would come.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were holding on in belief, especially here. It is what it is. The Chargers roster has never been fully healthy all season, and you could say that about any team, but the Chargers suffer a lot more catastrophic injuries to starters than I think any other team. I mean, it's always a starter going down. It's a corner one week. It's a linebacker the next week. Look at all the offensive linemen now that are done for the season for this team. They can never stay healthy for the majority of the season. Listen, we all know that they're a good team when they're fully healthy. They're a difference maker. But they've been without Derwin James at the safety position for the whole season up to this point. They've been without Melvin Ingram for a few weeks up until these last 2 games. Their offensive line has been depleted from the start. Hasn't gotten any better. They've suffered injuries at corner. The receiver, it just keeps happening to this team in particular, unfortunately, and it's reflecting on Phillip Rivers. So, and we all know this is his last year of his current contract. Mm-hmm. So the Chargers, I really do believe they're going to have to move on from Rivers at this point. Mm-hmm. He's not going to be any younger. Do you really want to invest $25+ million on an aging quarterback who, yes, he's definitely kind of lifted your franchise and has kept it relevant for so long, but at this point you're seeing poor play now. As his contract starts to expire, you're seeing a decrease in his playing ability and in decision making too.
mm-hmm.
To the point where now It's time to pull the plug. It's time to move on. It's time to find a new, fresh face for this franchise, and whether that be in the draft, because we know that the quarterback situation for this draft upcoming is going to be deep and plentiful. So if they're going to look forward, now's the time to do it if they want to go draft-wise. However, there are going to be some quarterbacks available for maybe short-term, like a stopgap quarterback that they could bring in and start. You know, like you mentioned Eli Manning, but you also got to think of like Nick Foles and Gardner Minshew. Maybe the Nick Foles gets traded. I don't know. I mean, because here's the thing. This is the interesting thing about the Jaguars right now, is the Jaguars have a luxury like the Eagles had. You know, now that they've seen a little bit of Gardner Minshew, they've seen Nick Foles actually for half a game, not much, until this past week. But now I think what you're going to see is the Jacksonville Jaguars take into account now. They're going to look at Gardner Minshew's weeks of starting ability and playing, and they're going to compare it with Nick Foles' remaining season and try to say, hey, are they kind of similar? Because if they are, then we can get rid of some salary and move on from Nick Foles where another team could use him, like maybe the Chargers. And yet again, Nick Foles gets traded to another team to be the starter. So that's a route they could go. They could go for some kind of a short-term quarterback to replace Rivers right off the jump and still draft a quarterback for the future. But either way, I believe that it's Rivers' time is over with the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, again, the last two games that he's played, he's been 54% completion percentage and 53%, and just overall looked bad. He's had 3 interceptions against the Raiders and 4 last week against the Chiefs. Again, but the thing is also, is this even the fact that he's playing against divisional rivals that are always tougher?
No.
Is he because the game before that he was throwing 70%. He didn't throw any touchdowns either, but it kept better ball control against who was it? The Green Bay Packers here, right? So I mean, how has it changed between just the last 2 weeks? I mean, to me, it looks like he was a bit rattled. Has now this offensive line with the depletion of that and the injuries there, I think they had to put Feeney here at center, and he's not working out so well there. I mean, is that really shaking on him? Because for me, he had happy feet in the last game and looked a little bit rattled when he's trying to drive them down. Luckily, there was that one offsides call, I think, by the defense that got him back into it, and that turned a 3rd and 10 to a 3rd and 5, and he gets that big deep ball here. But then again, just throwing in the coverage, it just made no sense. Stuff that I've seen Phillip Rivers not really do that often. You know, he's not really known for a lot of turnovers.
There's been periods through his career where he has been heavily turning the ball over with interceptions beforehand. It's not like it's a major surprise. It's not like it's an alert saying, "Oh, yeah, this is the end of his career," because we've seen more interceptions thrown this season than any other season before. This has happened a few times before throughout his career, and that's where you start to get the argument where, Phillip Rivers is a terrible quarterback. You know, he turns the ball over too much. At times it has happened, but he is a really good quarterback. Now, here's the thing is, for the last couple of weeks, that offensive line is depleted to nothing now. They only have, I think, maybe 1, possibly 2 starters left on that O-line at this point. And in that game, there were mistakes being made not just by Phillip Rivers, but also Melvin Ingram at the end when they had an interception, and it was called back because he was lined up off sides, and that negated that. And that was a critical point in that game. If they get that turnover, that changes the whole face of this game, and we may be talking about how the Chargers upset the Chiefs at this point. But so there were other mistakes being made by other players, even on defense, that it's not – I don't blame Rivers completely, but, yes, he was a major contributor in them losing because of his decision-making, because of some of his poor throws that he made. But also there was drops happening by his receivers as well. Keenan Allen, I saw a couple of drops from him. I saw a major drop by Mike Williams deep down the field. So all in all, some of it is a product of the injuries mounting up to this point, and then some of it is just Rivers. How much of it could be debated either way.
Again, let's take a look at his career right now. So if he ended it today, he's at 122 wins, 97 losses, a career completion percentage of 64.5, and yards 57,825. He's up there. I think he's like top 7 or so in yards all around. And touchdowns 389, and interceptions 192. So yeah, he's like almost up near 200. He might reach that mark this year. Who knows? With a few weeks left here, but an overall QBR rating of 95, which isn't too bad. But you also look at, say, at the bottom there, 8 times Pro Bowler, and that's it. Yeah. See, with his class now, Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowl wins, and Ben Roethlisberger has 2 as well.
Yeah, you think Phillip Rivers is wishing that trade never happened?
Yeah, I think so at times. But you know what's always the argument, I think, with Phillip Rivers, too, is he had LT and Vincent Jackson at one time and Antonio Gates.
That's
and they had
my
the
point,
opportunity
though.
to win. And that was the same defense that had Merriman and some other guys that were big.
But they
key
only had a
players
couple on both sides of the
Junior
ball.
Seau, but the problem is, though, with that argument, too, that I've always brought up, he was still facing the Patriots. He was still facing Peyton Manning and the Colts in the playoffs. So once it got playoff time, he had some tough competition he had to deal with all the time. Yes, he didn't get past them, but, I mean, I can understand them losing at times, because of the stiff competition they had going forward in the playoffs. But it's tough, though. He doesn't have that on his resume. I still think he's a Hall of Famer just by his stats alone and the way he's done. And that's even big for me to say because I'm a Giants fan. I know Eli Manning, whole trade that happened and stuff like that.
I don't think anything changes for New York, though, if they keep Rivers. I think they still win 2 Super Bowls.
Now, some people have said now if Rivers was with the Giants, would they have won more?
Maybe. But you got to consider this, too, is – it's tough because Eli Manning,
it's different scenarios.
It's a different quarterback. They're different quarterbacks. I still like both of them. But with Phillip Rivers, I feel like he's a little bit more decisive and quicker. Gets rid of the ball faster. And I think that could have led to maybe more wins, a few more wins, maybe another Super Bowl. Maybe they get 3 instead of 2. I still like Eli Manning, though. I still think he's a really good quarterback, and Phillip Rivers as well. It's just, unfortunately, with the 2 different paths that they've taken, for Rivers, it's been like injury after injury for the Chargers, and the team's never been really super healthy. Yes, he's had some great players that he's played alongside with Antonio Gates, with Vincent Jackson, with LaDainian Tomlinson. And then, like you brought up, Junior Seau, who was with the Chargers at one point. Sean Merriman came in, had a short career with the Chargers and played really well. But all in all, it's about the whole roster. So Rivers had a few good players, whereas I think when Eli Manning was at the helm and in his prime and that Giants team was real, he didn't have great receivers when he won those Super Bowls. He had better protection up front. He had a better offensive line, a healthy team per se, and I think they just had a better roster than when Rivers had with the Chargers, going for those Super Bowl runs and making it happen. So, unfortunately, sorry, Rivers, you were traded to the Chargers and you're dealt with a bad hand.
Yeah. I mean, and that's Phillip Rivers moving forward. We'll see. I think, again, with some of these quarterbacks, it is going to be a bringing them in, veteran. You draft whoever you can. We don't know what's going on with Tua now. If he drops now to the second round or whatever with that whole injury.
Tua had successful surgery. Yep. He's going to be okay. It's not as bad as it was being portrayed or not as bad as originally diagnosed. Now it seems like he's going to make a great return from injury. He's going to heal up and he'll be just fine around May, April-ish. And then he'll start to maybe do some mobility and start to throw the football and so forth. And he's got a long road to recovery, but they're saying that he is going to be fine. He will be able to play football again. But a lot of teams, they get scared when a major injury happens. he's probably going to slide most likely down into like maybe low first round. Maybe a team doesn't even want to have, wants to take him. No team maybe wants to take
someone
him now
that
at this
might
point,
be a little safer just to
where-
take the chance on him.
where if you can get him in the second, maybe the third, if he slips to the third, and you can take a shot and
Low
say,
risk,
hey,
high reward.
we don't need him right now, but if we can take a shot like the Cowboys did with Jalen Smith, just saying, it could pan out big time for them.
Absolutely. So, I mean, that's where Philip Rivers would fit, even if the Giants happen to just walk away from Eli Manning and he goes somewhere else. He's in the seat for now until the next young guy who happens to get drafted can
Right.
move on, groom him, and then again, so on and so forth. That's what we're going to see with these guys, types of quarterbacks here that are in the latter years of their careers here. Mike Tackett joined us here.
What's going
the
on, Mike?
show. He's in the house. All right, yeah, he says yet another happy hump day, gentlemen. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. With the inevitability of Philip Rivers nearing closer and closer to his end days in Los Angeles, if the Chargers could get Dwayne Haskins from Washington for a reasonable exchange, why not pull the trigger? In my eyes, Haskins is considered damaged goods given the train wreck Washington is. I could easily see Washington going after somebody in the draft. And don't forget, Alex Smith is still a possibility to return in 2020. I wondered if he's trying to bait John Turner on this question here, trying to get him in there and see what he thinks. I don't know if they want to move on from him because, I mean, yes, you did get rid of the head coach there.
Right.
Was that completely a Jay Gruden move to get Dwayne Haskins? I don't think
No.
so. That
He
was
didn't
the-
even want-
No,
he didn't even want
exactly.
Haskins.
So I think they're going to hold on to him there and try and make it work. Find a guy that can get Dwayne Haskins moving forward and progressing.
But this is another argument that can be said. Dwayne Haskins was not ready to come out of college. He should have stayed. He should have played 1 or 2 more years before even considering to come into the draft because he just simply wasn't ready. You're seeing that, but you're also seeing flashes of him really making some great plays on the football field as well. So Haskins, to me, he's got to grow with his experience. He's got to learn from his mistakes, and he will eventually become that starting quarterback that the Washington Redskins have foreseen from the draft. It's just going to take some time now because the kid is very young for one. He came out too early, and now he's got to kind of play catch-up with the speed of the game of the NFL, with the mentality part of the game, with the playbook and reading defenses and game planning week to week. So when that day comes, eventually you will see a light kind of just shine, and he'll just have it and get it, and he'll roll because Haskins coming out of college was – for that season was the most accurate quarterback coming out. And that's a big major attribute you need as a quarterback. So the future is bright with Haskins. You just got to kind of be patient with him. I know it's hard, but the Redskins need a lot more talent than what they already have anyway. So you got to be patient with Haskins, let him grow, and hopefully the next coach and staff that they bring in is going to help him do so.
Yeah, and as far as Los Angeles, they've got a big question mark this year. What are they going to do? Are they going to try and move up spots to get one of those quarterbacks?
I don't
Will
think they
take
have
the
to.
value pick? If it happens to be, if they're watching it and if Tua's dropping back, if he declares, are they going to go for him? Or are they going to try and move up to get some of the other guys? Or are they going to stick where they are? They've got Tyrod Taylor. Here's another question: if Philip Rivers has another egg this week,
Yeah.
are they going to put Tyrod Taylor in? Will we see Tyrod Taylor this season?
So what are they? They 4-6 right now. Mm-hmm. So if they lose one more game, 4-7, they're not really statistically out of the playoff race. They might keep them for one more. If they lose, if they're 4-8, if they lose the next 2 weeks, then I could see them probably making the change. Say, hey, we're going to put Tyrod Taylor in. Let's see what we have in him, because we've seen Tyrod Taylor before play with Buffalo Bills, and he's had some success. Also was with the Cleveland Browns as well. So we've seen him have a little bit of success when he's given the opportunity to start. And who knows, maybe the Chargers do need a refresh, hit the reset button at the quarterback position. Maybe putting Tyrod Taylor in now wouldn't be such a bad idea. Yes, it's going to ruffle some feathers, especially with Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
And it'd just be
But
sputtering.
what have we talked about? If the offensive line is failing, what about a guy that's a little more mobile? That's
yeah.
not going to stay in the pocket. Get a little bit out. Get some room. Give his wide receivers a little more time to get open. Direct them into traffic, and maybe make a.
It might not prove success for them, but yeah, that's an option because Tyrod Taylor isn't the most accurate on the run as well. So that could lead to other mistakes as well.
I could see this here because Anthony Lynn, last year did a great job with this team, but now Phillip Rivers not playing so well. I can't see him just gritting his teeth and just watching this happening and multiple turnovers and just be like, well, this is what I'm dealing with this season now.
Well, sometimes as a coach, you have your highs and you have your lows. And right now, Anthony Lynn is at his lowest point in his coaching career, and there's not much he can change to correct this ship. It's already over the cliff right now. And for Anthony Lynn, he's put in a tough position. I think he's a phenomenal coach. So whatever happens, I hope the Chargers don't let Anthony Lynn go and blame him because that would be a critical mistake on their part. Just wait for it. You're going to have to be patient now. The season is pretty much over. They're a game or two mathematically until they're done and out of the playoffs. So who knows? Maybe they do. I'll say this. Because of Phillip Rivers and how great he's been for this organization, I don't think you're going to see them bench Rivers for Tyrod Taylor unless they know they're just done and finished and out of the playoff race. Unless they don't have a shot anymore to win the division, don't have a shot to even make wild card, then I could see them maybe last 2 games, last 3 games, and they'll put Tyrod Taylor in to see what they have in him.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting moving forward. They have a bye week this week, so he's got another week to think about it if he wants to decide to do that. Maybe we'll see Tyrod Taylor get some more first-team reps here. Who knows? They've got to wait and see, figure out something here in a division to where it's kind of gone a little backwards at times. I mean, look at the Oakland Raiders making a surge here. Kansas City Chiefs, ever since that game where Patrick Mahomes had gotten knocked out and left the game with the injury, he hasn't looked the same. He hasn't been so Mahomesy.
Right.
And they're vulnerable right now.
I tell you right now, what our defense is doing against the Chiefs right now is something that everybody should have been doing from the start. The Chiefs are a big play offense. So if you can defend their big plays down the field, big, huge chunks that they like to get, that kind of really steamrolls this offense and they start racking up points, if you can do that, you have a chance to shut this offense down. Because that's what they rely on. They rely on the Tyreek Hills to get open deep 60 yards down the field. They rely on Sammy Watkins to get deep on post routes and crossing routes deep 15, 20 yards down the field. That's what they really roll on. They're all the momentum is built around those big plays. Now, if you can limit them to short plays, make the tackles where they are, don't let them to get yards after the catch, and then compile that along with stopping that run game. Then you just completely eliminate them. So they rely on those big plays. If you can limit them or stop those big plays, you got a real shot in beating this team because their offense is their driving force in this team. It's not so much the defense. Yeah, they got a nice couple of nice strong pieces on the defensive line. They got Tyrann Mathieu in the back end. But other than that, they're not a very stout defense.
All right, and that's going to move us into our next segment. We're going right to the drop, Joe. We're going to give everybody some points here with the drop. That's a great question, by the way, from Mike Tackett, bringing us in here.
New Orleans Saints guard Andrews Peat underwent surgery after suffering a broken arm against the Atlanta Falcons. Peat will miss 6 weeks to recover from the procedure, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Representatives for the NFL and the NFL Players Association have made meaningful progress toward a new labor agreement. That would potentially include a 17-game regular season, according to the Washington Post's Mark Mask. A 17-game season would be accompanied by a reduction in preseason games. It also could come with an expansion of the NFL playoff field from 12 to 14 teams. Although people familiar with the situation previously have suggested that expanding the playoffs would not need to happen immediately. because it does not require the union's approval. So that's some interesting news, is that they are, in fact, leaning and heading towards a 17-game season.
Yeah, I don't know about the expansion of the playoff teams. I don't know about that.
From 12 to 14, who cares?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's only 2 extra teams.
I know it's 2 extra, but I think there's even 2 extra now that maybe shouldn't be there at times. I don't know.
Oh, come
I like
on.
to see the
Have
elite.
a little bit more excitement.
You know what I mean? Come on. You know, I don't like these extra teams. And if you're there, you're there.
It's not that major of a change, though. It really isn't.
We'll see.
I think it adds a little bit more, because you got to remember, that actually makes perfect sense. There's way too often teams that are second in their division that have winning records that
That can't
deserve
make
the opportunity to compete in a bracket, a playoff bracket, and they could upset a lot of teams. They just won't ever get the chance because they didn't add those 2 extra teams. So it's happened before. We've seen a division-winning team be 12-4, and the second-place team being either 12-4 or 11-5, and they don't even get to make the playoffs. Don't even get the opportunity. So
I mean, I can see
I think
if
it makes
you're
sense.
working them all in the if you give them all in the bigger wild card round, in the maybe 2 weeks of wild cards going on, maybe that would be a more interesting.
Per NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, the Browns have released Antonio Callaway, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. Also, Callaway is facing a 10-game suspension for violating the NFL's substance abuse policy, which in turn, we all know that Callaway's been hurt often. The Browns have decided to move on from him, and they're just tired of it. They're tired
Winners don't use drugs.
Exactly. They're tired of Antonio Callaway's injuries. They're also tired of now his suspensions that are mounting up.
Yeah, he can't even. He has the opportunities. He could do well, and just he keeps getting in his own way.
And that's always been his problem. Even in college, he got into trouble. So now he's going to be a free agent next season. You know, teams that need wide receivers like the Philadelphia Eagles.
Or XFL, here I come again. Who knows?
You're going to need him. The Eagles, speaking of the Eagles running back Darren Sproles is done for the season with a torn right hip flexor. So Darren Sproles, one of the more aging guys, veterans that are still sticking around this league, still plays at a high level despite his age. Unfortunately, is now we're starting to see the injury bug get to him a little bit more often.
Yeah, he might be done now. Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, he's been doing so long. You know, I'm surprised he's still there, but dude was a beast.
Yeah, this is another injury, and at this point, he might start thinking about life after football. Jets' offensive tackle Kelvin Beachum named Week 10 NFLPA Community MVP for donating $10,000 to the United Way of Greater Newark and setting up a drive that generated 26,000 bottles of clean water for residents in need, most of which he personally delivered.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
that's pretty cool.
That's great. Yeah,
There's some good happening in the
Beach.
community.
I should talk to Lebec guys about that. They're tight with him. See what they think of that.
There
Get
you
him
go.
on there, for some positive stories in the
That's
world.
right.
Right?
The Philadelphia Eagles also have signed free agent running back Jay Ajayi.
Yeah.
Jay Ajayi, he's been out there
He's
in free
back.
agency. He's back in the NFL, baby, and don't think he's going to do much because, to be quite honest, the Philadelphia Eagles is where running backs go to die. Unless you're Miles Sanders. He's the only one that has seen any kind of success. Arizona Cardinals have signed tight end Max Williams to a 2-year extension, locking him up with this team. Max Williams, he formerly of the Baltimore Ravens, high draft pick for the Ravens, didn't really get much playing time, was hurt there and everything. Now he finds a home with the Cardinals. Cardinals love what he's doing there. Lock him up for 2 years. Jets placed offensive line Ryan Khalil on IR per source. Ryan Khalil came out of retirement just to play for the Jets and start at center for them. Now, no longer have a starting center. So
Yep, just like that,
another injury to this Jets offensive line, making it a little bit weaker. Dolphins signed.
But they still beat Washington. That's how bad Washington is.
But hey, Dolphins are making moves right now, and I think it's for the future. Let's see how this all works out. But Dolphins have just recently signed wide receiver Allen Hurns to a 2-year deal, $8 million extension, and includes $3.27 million in guaranteed per Adam Schefter. This is a move. They wanted to lock up Allen Hurns. They see something in him. They, Brian Flores thinks that he could utilize this guy. Who knows? Maybe every team that he's been, the couple teams that he's been on in the past, just haven't been able to find the right way to use him, but maybe Dolphins got something up their sleeve. Detroit Lions quarterback Matt Stafford could miss anywhere to 6 games with a spine injury, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter and NFL.com's Ian Rappaport. This is unfortunate news for the Lions because the Lions, they've been competitive this year, way more than a lot of people think. We were always high in the Lions. We always known them as those sleeper type team
too.
And Stafford, if Stafford was starting a QB, they win last week. They beat the Cowboys because I'll tell you right now, I was impressed with not just the Lions as a team, but Jeff Driscoll stepping his game up in that week, and he helped keep the Lions team right there all the way to the end within a touchdown. Stafford's there. I think it's over. I think Lions win that pretty easy. And, whoa, what did I do here? Okay. Indianapolis Colts running back Marlon Mack will miss a few weeks after undergoing surgery on a fractured hand, per James Palmer of the NFL Network. Marlon Mack suffered a fractured hand in last week's game. A lot of people thought and were scared that it could have been season-ending. But after the surgery was successful and everything, they found out that it wasn't as bad as initially anticipated, thus giving some hope for Marlon Mack to return this season. Raiders signed linebacker Preston Brown, who's been out there in free agency the past couple of weeks, placed Dwayne Harris on IR. Preston Brown, this is a big need for the Raiders in the middle. Now, since Vontaze Burfict has been suspended for the year, they really haven't had a true middle linebacker there running the team. And now Preston Brown, who I think it's a pleasant surprise now that he was available. Why the Bengals cut him 2 weeks ago, I have no idea. But now the Raiders get a middle linebacker that they're in much need of. Browns plays safety Morgan Burnett on IR. So Browns already lost Myles Garrett due to the suspension. They just happened to get their cornerbacks healthy, and now their starting safety Morgan Burnett, now he's done for the season. Dolphins placed a couple veteran DBs on IR as safety Rashad Jones and cornerback Bobby McCain see their seasons end due to injury. And there you have it. That's a short drop, everybody.
All right, there you go. All right, the drop.
40 time on that's probably a 4 or 5 on the drop there. That was pretty quick.
Yeah, possibly.
Not a whole lot of news going on this week.
No, just like that. I didn't even finish the song this time. It's craziness. All right. Ooh, sorry. As you know,
okay?
we are streaming right now with Restream on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter as well, on Periscope. So it's a pleasure having everybody on here. Make sure you guys, if you aren't on any of those other platforms, like, follow, post, share, all the other goodies. Joe, tell them all about it. What do you say about it?
Yes. YouTube, everybody. Come on, we're trying to grow this family that we got going on. We only have 16 subscribers. We need your help, Facebook. We need your help, YouTubers. We need your help, Twitter. If you could please go to our YouTube channel, Football on the No Show. Smash that subscription button. Hit the notification bell for all our most updated content. And also, if you're trying to stay updated with the NFL, go ahead and switch over to Twitter. Hit us up at FB_no. And get in the know with the know-it-alls.
All right, there you go. All right, we, like everybody knows, we have our picks competition going on this year again. Last year was exciting, and ended up getting pretty intense. I had a pretty good lead, and stuff. And we tried to come back and it made some risky choices here to try and get back into it, and didn't make it. So, but it was a great show when you had to drink the big football here.
I'm sure you enjoyed that.
Yes, we do. I do enjoy it. We made some of our clips from our intro over it and stuff. It's a very entertaining where you walked off and stuff. It was fun. So this is it. We're going to be playing for. So this is a gift for all of us here and for you guys out there to see one of us pretty drunk here and talk football.
Trying to talk football.
But this year, it's totally different, Joe. If you look at the standings here, we
got?
are neck and neck again, tied. And it's not like we've been picking the same picks here. We've been, switching them up here and there. I win one, you lose one, then I lose one, then you win one, and it comes right back to the same spot. So now,
let me ask you
we're
this.
duking it out here.
Let me ask you this.
What's up?
If for some odd reason this ends up in a tie at the end of the season, does that mean we both have to drink?
It could, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. You know, maybe we have to duke it out like that. You know, what's funny is people had brought this up. You know, I'm going to tell this story real quick. I don't know how it even came out, though, so this might be a really bad story. But
Okay.
It said I think maybe it's something with my son, something like that, like arm wrestling or something like that. And I was like, I would kill you at it, you know what I mean? And then he's like, "What do you think you'd beat mommy and stuff?" And I'm like, "Well, I could probably beat mommy at an arm wrestling and stuff." Then he goes,
I know moms are pretty tough though.
"Do you think you could beat Joe?" And I said,
randomly.
"Huh?" And my wife instantly says, "No." You know, I'm like, "Oh, really? Really?" Oh, really? You didn't think I can beat Joe?
No
you know?
hesitation?
Like, you're supposed to be in my corner. You know what I'm saying?
Wow, you got to be there for your man.
Yeah. That was my heart right there.
Unbelievable.
You know?
That's
So I was
terrible.
like, really? You don't think I can? She was, why? I don't know. I'm like, I think I could. I think I could. I'm pretty good at arm wrestling, and you know, at least I could put up a fight.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And so I brought it up to guys at work, and they said, "You guys should do that sometime on the show." And I'm like, arm wrestle? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe we would to decide a thing. I'm like, so maybe we'll arm wrestle sometime if it's a tie.
Right.
But I don't know. It might go badly for me, but then I get to drink. Or we could just both drink. Whatever
just
we
both
want.
drink.
But
It's fine.
I thought it was pretty funny, though, that, you know,
Yeah.
my wife didn't back me up at all. You know, didn't even
what's-
say, well, I don't know, maybe we'll see, you know.
What's crazy to me is that it just kind of got brought up like, oh, what about Joe? Like out of left field, right?
Yeah. Well, my sons love you, and they see you all the
Yeah.
time, and they know you're a big, tough dude and everything, too. So
I'm not tough.
They're
I'm a
trying to
teddy
size
bear.
it up. It's funny how it goes from my wife to you, though. You know, it's like, yeah, you can be her, but can you be
They're like,
Joe?
can you beat Joe,
Oh,
though?
I don't know. We'll see, though. You know, I used to hold my own pretty well. But
It's
right now, we're holding our own here together with the picks again. We're at 107 and 56, and we are crushing some competition out there, Joe.
Some major
ESPN is
competition.
jealous of us right now. So let's cue up some music here, and we'll get this thing rocking and rolling. If you guys haven't noticed, too, our ticker down at the bottom here, we have all the games coming up, too, so you guys can check them up and see what times they're moving along here. And I've got the dates, too, as well. So let's go, first of all, tomorrow night, we've got the Indianapolis Colts and the Houston Texans. Houston looked pretty embarrassing last week. They're going to be at home. They play tough at home all the time. But you know what? With Jacoby Brissett at the helm here for the Indianapolis Colts, it's a total different story here. You know, Brian Hoyer's out, Jacoby's back. Marlon Mack's not there, but they've dealt with him not being there before. They got Naheem Hines. He always carries a workload here and there for them.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a tough game here, but I see Indianapolis edging this one out.
I'll tell you right
Where'd my
now, this
music go?
is going to be a good game. What's up?
I lost my music.
You lost your music.
Yeah, there it goes. I don't know why it didn't. There we go.
Anyway, Indianapolis Colts, Houston Texans. This is going to be a good game. I don't think the Texans got to be a little bit pissed from last week, getting kind of really ravaged by the Baltimore Ravens. So I think they're going to come back strong in this one. It's a rivalry game. It's going to be close. But the Colts, I really love the Colts' offensive line. I think that's a key cog in this offense with Jacoby Brissett returning. I don't think there's going to be T.Y. Hilton. I don't think is going to return to this week, unfortunately. But I still think they can get things rolling with the receivers that they have. We see the emergence of Zach Pascal at receiver. He's starting to play really well for them, making a name for himself. Eric Ebron got a little bit more involved last week. Marlon Mack, even though he's not there, there's another running back, and it's not Naeem Hines. It is Jeff Williams. I watched him play last week.
Jonathan Williams?
Jonathan Williams. He got 15 carries, well over 100 yards, had 120 yards, had a touchdown. He really kind of took over that offense, and you see a lot of physicality, a guy that's really grinding out yards, even if it's the yard or two, he's still pushing for more. I like Williams in this one starting, and I like the Colts. The Colts defense is still good. I think they're going to give the Texans everything they got, and the Colts are going to win.
All right, this is an interesting now.
Sorry, Albert.
Interesting. Yeah, I know. Sorry, Albert. We've been rough on the Texans. Here we go. Tampa Bay Buccaneers now go into Atlanta. Atlanta's just a different team all out now.
Yeah, what's
now we
going
can
on
maybe look at them now in a different light.
I don't even know how to look at
Dan
them.
Quinn moved aside and said, here, I'm done with this. You know,
Just-
I know it's definitely
I'm
not
nervous.
Dirk Cutters doing it.
I'm
I know
nervous
that
now.
much.
I don't know how to pick this game anymore.
Yeah. Well, the way I'm looking at it, what sucks is for us too is Tampa Bay. They're a
They've burnt
night and
us a
day
lot of
team
times.
too. They're up and down. But you know what? I'm going to jump on the bandwagon here. Atlanta at home playing against Tampa Bay, which I'm not really high on Jameis Winston, and I've never been. I'm going to go with Atlanta here to get their third straight win at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
This one I'm kind of struggling with because I've seen the emergence of the Buccaneers' defensive line, putting a lot of pressure on opponents, especially with now JPP's returned, and he's showing that he's got fresh legs. He's ready to go. They're putting a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. However, I just can't trust the Buccaneers' offense to save my life here. Jameis Winston, I have no confidence in. He's a turnover machine. I think he turns it over at least 2 times in this game, giving the Atlanta Falcons ample opportunity to go ahead and take that to the house. So I like what the Atlanta Falcons doing in the last couple of weeks. Their defense seemed to come to life. Their offense is feeding off their defense. So, yeah, I'm going to go the same way. I'm going to go with the Atlanta Falcons at home.
All right. The Denver Broncos have been playing a little different now, too, since they've even made the switch. Isn't that amazing here? You know, Joe Flacco brings up the problems with the team, but all of a sudden they're playing better without him now, though. So, I mean, what are we really looking at here with the Denver Broncos?
I don't know. It's just like the Falcons, man. I don't know. I just don't know how to read this team. We saw them early on. For the first 4 to 5 weeks where they were just like abysmal. They were terrible. Joe Flacco goes down to injury, and here comes Brandon Allen, the savior of Denver.
Yeah.
The wild, wild West man. And he's just killing it on offense. He's accurate. He's decisive. Hell, I'm just going to say Brandon Allen could be the future of this team so far. It's only been a short amount of time we've seen him play. But now he's got to go up against the Buffalo Bills defense. This is a very, very tough defense. They have to travel to Buffalo to face these guys. Bills play really well at home. It's hard to play there. Going to be cold, but it's always cold in Denver, so that really doesn't make much of a difference. But the travel to go to all the way to the East Coast could play a part in this game. The Denver Broncos defense is coming together very nicely. Vic Fangio's got them running on all cylinders, playing really well. But I'm going to stick with the Bills. I picked the Bills initially to have a winning season. So far, they're making me right. And I'm going to stick with Buffalo at home and kind of bringing the Denver Broncos back down to life.
I agree with you here. And the one issue that I've had with both of these teams, which maybe with a few teams all around the NFL, they're beating teams that you would be surprised that they beat, and then losing the teams that they should have. Look at the Buffalo Bills right there. They've had the New England in their grasp. Yes, Josh Allen wasn't there for that game in the end there, so couldn't get it done. But other teams where we thought they would finish and be able to flex and show that they are a contender, they failed to do so. This should be a game they should be able to be in and take. But I'm afraid again because I just don't know what I'm going to get from these guys. But they are at home. Hopefully we're going to get some snow for this game. It's going to be exciting here. And I'm liking Buffalo here, too, at home. But who knows? We could all have snowballs in our face after this one.
Who cares?
Snowballs out of control. Meanwhile, next we go to the New York Giants going into Chicago. I think this is the perfect game for the Chicago Bears here. Mitch Trubisky struggling at times, trying to get the ball out to people. They benched him now, for Chase Daniels. They said it was due to a hip injury.
Bullshit.
Is it or not? We don't know. So we're probably going to see Chase Daniels here this week.
All I know is Mitch Trubisky was running around just fine through the whole entire game. He was okay when he left the field. And then all of a sudden had a miracle injury to his hip. Okay?
Yeah,
sure.
I think confidence, that's what he's out for. His confidence here, there, just can't get it right. I don't know, but
and
Chicago,
he had a decent game. That's the other crazy
horrible. Thing. But again, I think when you got people in the media and all around telling you that you're constantly not good and stuff, and then they show you videos, that's what Matt Nagy showed you, look how your body chemistry is and this and this.
Right.
You can't get it going. It's a problem, so it's tough here. But they're going against the New York Giants, who, again, this defense is horrible. Can't really get any pressure, can't cover when they do. It's DeAndre Baker creating penalties, pass interference, or defensive holding, which penalizes them and gives them the yardage back. And Daniel Jones, who's been making mistakes. And you know what? It's because he's getting pressured because there's no offensive line. What do I see here? The Chicago Bears without Akeem Hicks, but still Khalil Mack and company, I think are still going to get enough pressure against this watery offensive line here. And this is going to be a good bounce-back game for the Chicago Bears to play at home and get some scoring going here. So I see the Giants losing this game in Chicago. And so there you go. And maybe Mitch
that's it.
Trubisky will be there. Yeah. So, I mean.
I do agree with you, but this game to me it's like it's tough for both teams.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This is going to be one of those games where both teams are going to try not to win, and it's not tanking. It's just they're both in a bad spot right now. So, but the Bears defense, they have a lot of talent, and it's going to be tough for the Giants. Like you
That's
just
what I mean. Their talent.
You just mentioned
so
Daniel
much.
Jones, or everyone's calling him Danny Dimes. He's not so much Danny Dimes. It's just not working out for them. So he's making a lot of bad decisions. He's forcing balls to receivers. It's not working out too well. Saquon Barkley, I'm kind of surprised. I wonder if he's a little banged up because he wasn't the Saquon Barkley we all know last week. He didn't run the same. He looked a little awkward. And again, also, are they going to have Evan Ingram back this week? You know, he was banged up last week. So that's another weapon. If they lose him, I don't know. I think it's going to be.
I mean, he's just never coming back.
It's going to be a problem. So this defense for the Bears, they're going to give the Giants everything they can handle. And, you know, for the Giants, listen, the Giants statistically have been a really bad team. They can't stop the pass to save their lives. They've been able to play well against the run. But this is going to be a tough game. I think this is going to be a real close game. It could go either way in my eyes, but I just can't trust the fact that now that the Giants are going to be going into this game without Nate Solder. Yes, he isn't the greatest tackle, but he's probably better than what your backup's going to be. And I think the Bears are going to have a lot of fun in the backfield. Give me Chicago at home.
All right, there you go. Now, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. This is a rivalry game again. Pittsburgh coming off that loss to Cleveland, Mason Rudolph, almost dying, and the injuries mounting up. I think Juju's still going to be able to play.
Juju's not going to play.
No, he's not. All right, so he's not. He's got to be in the concussion
Juju's
protocol
not going to play.
still.
James Conner's not going to be there.
This could be. Imagine this: Cincinnati coming in here and stealing a win at home. But who do you like in this one, Joe?
Cincinnati. I saw them play last week, and they played tough. This is a team that's not tanking by any means. This is a team that's coming to try to win every single week. The one thing I don't like is Ryan Finley at quarterback. I understand why Cincinnati has him starting over Andy Dalton. It's because they want to see what they have in him to potentially maybe move on in the future with Ryan Finley, or they're just trying to decipher, is Finley a starting eligible NFL quarterback, or should they draft one again? I think if Andy Dalton gets into this game, I think he lights up the Steelers. But I don't foresee them doing that. I think they're still sticking with Finley, trying to get more tape on him and to get him more experience. I don't know. I liked what I saw in Joe Mixon, his running game, but the Steelers' defense, man, it's special. It really is. This Steelers' defense is so good. I don't think I can bet against them, even though they lost last week against the Browns. I like the Steelers' D alone. Mason Rudolph, now this is one thing that we'll have to monitor, how healthy he's going to be for this game. I know there hasn't been a whole lot of talk that he won't play, but I think it's almost a gift. I kind of like Hodges better at quarterback for the Steelers, so I think he's a little bit better thrower of the football. So, and he's mobile to boot. So I think that might help them out as well. So I'm going to go with the Steelers in this one. I don't think the Bengals get their first win, although I do expect this to be a close game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a close game, but again, I would just have to the weights tip by the Pittsburgh defense. They get to bounce back this week. They had a little frustration last week, I'd say. With
they're
that
pissed.
Team.
They're pissed, man.
So
they got embarrassed.
Yeah, I think T.J. Watt comes back here through and pulls
That's
it
right,
out
Steel
for him.
Town,
So
calling you out.
Now Miami going into Cleveland now. Cleveland, I wasn't really impressed last week. They could have been very impressive to me, but when you get up to a 14-point lead and then you can't score again until late in the fourth quarter, that's a problem, especially when you had the ball for the majority of the game. I mean, and then, yes,
you know what I do
their
like?
kicker did miss a few of those.
Go ahead.
But
I'm
what's
sorry.
up?
No,
Sure,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, what I did like last week is I saw what the Cleveland Browns got a little bit more creative on offense.
Yeah.
We always wondered what the return of Kareem Hunt was going to do with this offense. Are you going to take Nick Chubb completely out? Are you going to just swap him in once in a while? they're actually utilizing them both on the field at the same time, and not Kareem Hunt getting the ball all the time. Kareem Hunt is actually laying blocks down as a fullback out of the backfield, creating some, confusing offensive plays. No one really knows where the ball's going. Is Kareem Hunt getting the ball? Is Nick Chubb getting the ball? And that kind of helped this offense open up a little bit more now. So that's where I think you saw last week going against the Steelers, that they were actually able to put up points against this good, stout defense because of the confusion they were able to create. And the Cleveland Browns defense, I think they're still solid, even without Garrett. I still think they're going to be okay. Yes, they also don't have Morgan Burnett, but they got enough veteran pieces in that defense to kind of keep everybody straight. Dolphins, they've surprised us. They've definitely surprised us at times. It seems like they're getting better now as we get towards the end of the season. They're starting to come together as a team. We're able to see a little bit more of an identity from this offense and defense, but still, they don't have the talent altogether. I think because Cleveland will be home, I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns because what I saw is some new wrinkles to this offense, and being very creative with utilizing Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, along with now that Jarvis Landry is kind of the go-to guy in Cleveland, and OBJ is more of the deep threat. So I think they're going to play that off. Also, who comes back this week for the Cleveland Browns? David Njoku, the tight end who's been injured and has been out for quite some time. He's returning, giving them another element to this offense. So give me the Browns against the Dolphins.
All right, yeah, the Dolphins here moving. They've been surging, playing better. The Cleveland Browns here, again, they didn't really impress me last week. Like you said, though, also the Kareem Hunt getting in there. They're able to get him out, work him in the slot as a receiver, as a running back. They put him in on some other plays. Really made sure that he was going to be an integral part of their offense, which was refreshing, like you said. Talent-wise, I'm going with Cleveland here just because Miami, doesn't have it as much. So Cleveland should win this game, but I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, if this is a real close game and Fitzmagic can pull out something to make it close here. But I'm going to lean with Cleveland as well, and who knows, maybe they could, screw it up for me again, like they always do. All right, Carolina. What the hell's going on with the Carolina Panthers now? Kyle Allen doesn't look so hot. The New Orleans Saints bounced back last week after an embarrassment here by the Atlanta Falcons. So New Orleans playing at home. Drew Brees and company, they're all back. Mike Thomas says he should possibly be considered for the MVP. So I don't know. I think Carolina, they're on a downturn, not looking so hot. I'm liking New Orleans Saints here to keep the train rolling here and show that they're one of the dominant teams here. They're still out there in the NFC.
Yeah, one thing that we noticed with the Carolina Panthers last week is that their offense can be stopped, and they were handled. Christian McCaffrey was kind of almost – he was minimized what he was able to do. They kind of almost shut him down at times. And Kyle Allen, he felt pressure. And we've seen with any other quarterback, they start to get pressure, throw quicker decisions. They got to get rid of the ball faster than they want to. They start making mistakes. That offense really never got on track last week. Now comes another opponent, another tough one with the Saints. Saints, they're definitely they're still striving. They want to become one of those higher seeds. They're still looking to gun down anybody in their way. Saints are one of my favorites in the NFC, making the Super Bowl. I love the Saints defense. They're very tough. Saints offense is tough to stop. Even though this is a rivalry, I think the Saints might end up getting the best of them. Give me the Saints at home.
Next up is a close one here. The Oakland Raiders going into the New York Jets. This has been a game that us up here in the Northeast here have been marking this calendar. A lot of people want to go to check out this game here, see what we're going to see with the Jets.
I know I was going to go. I really was.
See if Levesque still wants
but
somebody
I got
to go
Super
with.
Bowl to win.
Yeah, it's true. And the one thing here that troubles me here with Oakland is they always have a hard time when they have to travel to the East Coast here on these other games. The time change is a bit of a difference for them here to go into New York now and play the Jets. But the Jets are struggling too at times.
Gotta
Sam
watch
Darnold's on and off.
You got to watch this Jets team. The last couple of weeks, they've been playing way better.
They've been playing better,
on offense.
especially the defense has been going.
Well, defense has been healthier.
Yeah.
So that's where you're starting to get. The only thing that I don't like about the Jets defense is their secondary is really weak. They can be had in the air. They're one of the best run defenses in the NFL. but really poor in the passing game. So on defense, but the offense, I like what they got going the last couple of weeks. It seems like they're starting to really kind of get in sync here, and they're starting to all their plays are well executed, and I like what I see from Sam Darnold right now in the last couple of weeks. Not only are the Jets are home, Raiders got to travel to the East Coast, and usually that means problems for the Raiders. They usually come out flat. I don't know if it's going to affect them this year because who's traveled more than the Raiders? I mean, first half of the year they were just pretty much around the globe. So I don't think that's going to be as much of a factor, but I do think the Raiders playing a couple of games at home, now coming to a colder climate, that might affect them a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. If I was to see a trap game, this is one of the major trap games, I think, this week. I think the Raiders, as well as they've been playing, they won a couple straight. They've done very well. Josh Jacobs, he's playing great, but guess what? This Jets defense is going to try to shut down Josh Jacobs. One of the better run defenses. I think they can do it. Going to make the Raiders one-dimensional. And then the Raiders defense, what defense are we going to see against this Jets offense? Are we going to see the sack-happy, they got a lot of young players on that D-line. Max Crosby had 4 sacks last week, 3 the previous week. Can he continue that trend? It's going to be tough to do, although the Jets offensive line's pretty weak as well. So it's a give and take. I'm going to go with the Jets at home just because the Raiders have to travel to New York. It's a 1 o'clock game. It's an earlier start for them, and I think this is a trap here.
Yeah, all right. The Jets, you've been playing. They've been playing better, like you said. The defense has been getting going. But the Le'Veon Bell, I think didn't he post on Twitter, said something about he's even planning, like, if they happen to lose, I think, again, he's planning on, like, benching himself or taking him out for the rest of the season or something like that.
I didn't see that. The only thing that I saw that he was complaining about on Twitter was he's been drug tested, like, 5 times this past week, and he's also been HGH blood tested,
yes,
like, a handful of times, all within the last couple of weeks or so. And he's so upset to the point where, like, if he gets another request to be tested, he's just saying, no, not doing it.
Yeah, that's right. He brought the drug testing. That's what it was again. Yeah, and he was saying, no, I'm just going to not even play or whatever. I mean, that's pretty crazy here. So he's upset with that. Oakland, though, again, they do have a hard time going in here to play against the Jets.
I do like my Raiders, and I think their offense is going to be tough to stop. But I don't know. I get this weird feeling that this is a trap game. I think the Raiders might not come out as with enough gusto to take on this team. I don't know if they're going to be up for it.
I hear you.
I don't like what I saw last week against the Bengals.
No, I know.
I think they could have easily put away them, and they kind of just let them hang around.
That's the thing, though, is they let teams hang around. I'm afraid of that, too, as well here. But I'm going to go with your Oakland Raiders here.
Okay.
I say this is a surprise. They're a different team than they've been, I'd
say.
Absolutely. And I think they will get pressure on Sam Darnold. He's going to make the mistakes. And Josh Jacobs, again, they got to get the ball game going. So
I'll take a loss in that column if that happens.
There you go. Yeah.
I'll gladly take it.
And that's where I'll gladly take it here, too. That would be precious if I get the win here on this one. All right. All right. The Detroit Lions now going to Washington. Even with Driscoll here, like we said, we've seen him play really well here for the Detroit Lions. They're a lot better than what Washington has to offer here, even if Washington is at home. I'm liking Detroit altogether. I don't have to put much explanation behind that.
No, not enough.
I like the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, we've seen the Redskins. Their defense just can't get it together. Even though they have talent, they just can't put it together and stop opponents. And then offensively, they're going through a little bit of struggling period. Haskins is still growing into the quarterback that they're trying to groom him to be. Scary Terry McLaurin, he's had his share of highlights and whatnot. But this offense, I do like Darius Geis. I'll tell you that right now. He played last week, and it really impressed me. Very hard runner, tough to bring down, and
only if he could stay healthy, right?
He just got to stay healthy. This Redskins offensive line isn't the same like it used to be. They don't have Trent Williams. The Lions showed me something special last week. They competed against the Cowboys, who everybody thought the Cowboys were going to automatically go to the Super Bowl before the season started. That's not happening. The Cowboys struggled against the Lions without Stafford. Lions were able to put up a lot of points, played well. So give me the Lions against Washington.
All right, here you go. He's going with the Lions, too, as well. No surprise. Seattle going into Philadelphia here now, Joe. What do you like on this one? I think Seattle has been playing well all the season. They're getting everyone involved, DK Metcalf and company.
Yeah.
Jadeveon Clowney, I mean, even though it's not turning into sacks, I think his pressures are making it look good,
He's
on
good.
that defensive
He's
line.
a good player.
Philadelphia, squandering wins. They've been in a lot of big games and just cannot get it done, to where some people are questioning if Carson Wentz is even that good. I mean, what's the problem? Because he's missing some wide open shots. But then when he does get it to the receivers right in the breadbasket here,
They're
dropping it. Nelson Aguilar again. So Philadelphia at home, I'm afraid of this one. I'm thinking I'm going to go with Seattle on this one. So what do you think?
we've seen the Eagles have a lot of, especially early on in the year. That's when they were healthy. You know, we seen Alshon Jeffrey kind of take over a game. It was Zach Ertz. It was Dallas Goedert. It was Deshaun Jackson, who was done for the year. So they're missing their deep threat, who was a nice compliment to Alshon Jeffrey. And now they're turning to Nelson Aguilar and other guys like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. But he's not much of a difference maker yet. Still trying to develop him. But the biggest problem, lack of weapons across the board. Yeah, they still got Zach Ertz. They still got Dallas Goedert, who I really like. And Alshon Jeffrey's got to stay healthy for this team going forward. But the lack of the running game, they got to kind of resort to the passing game with their running backs to move the ball, as well with their lack of receivers. And this is a team where Carson Wentz does not look like Carson Wentz. Wentz in his rookie year, in his second year, he looked more decisive. He would get rid of the ball quicker. I think now in this season alone, it looks to me like he's holding on to the football way too long and just not sure, not being decisive and getting rid of the ball, getting it out of his hands, and it's putting a lot of stress on his O-line, which leads to sacks. So and turnovers when he does try to force something. I'm not comfortable with this offense the way it is. Their defense, good defense. They played really well against the Patriots last week. They could have had that game if the Eagles offense was on track. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I see the same thing happening. I think the Eagles defense is going to play well now that they have a healthy defense back, especially their secondary. Seahawks, what can you say? Russell Wilson has been on a tear this season, along with rookie DK Metcalf making some big-time plays. Tyler Lockett, Chris Carson in the backfield, bowling over people. And now they have Josh Gordon, who they got from the Patriots when they released him. Josh Gordon has learned, now he's had 2 weeks of preparation to learn the playbook. He's going to probably get more involved this week. This Seattle defense was already dangerous without Josh Gordon. It's now going to be ridiculous to stop. Along with the Seattle defense, they're going to feed off this offense. I got Seattle going into Philly and beating them.
All right, here, that brings up our next one here now. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Tennessee Titans here. Now, this is a different game now, I think, since they last met. I mean, they've got Ryan Tannehill here now at the helm, and they've also now has Nick Foles here at the helm. You know, it's so different. You don't have Gardner Minshew. You don't have Marcus Mariota. So these are different teams behind these guys in a sense. Nick Foles a little rusty coming back here, I think, a little bit. But still, it's a tough Jacksonville team. You still have Leonard Fournette there and company. Tennessee, again, they look at the success they have when they put Derrick Henry out there and get him the ball. I mean, how do you not stick with this formula? It surprises me. And we've said it before the season started. This should have been a quarterback competition early on between Mariota and Ryan Tannehill, because I think he's just a better, more experienced quarterback, and he's not afraid to make some of those throws where you have to needle it in there. And he's confident on it and can do that. So this is a different Tennessee Titan team here at home now against Jacksonville. This is going to be a tough matchup here to go with. I think I'm going to lean towards Jacksonville on this one, though.
Okay.
Just Nick Foles there at the helm to bring it back here.
Yeah, you know, and what's not to like about either one of these teams? This is going to be this is not only a rival. This is also going to be a great game. I think this is going to be the game of the week, to be honest. I think this is going to be one of the more competitive games. And Jaguars versus Titans, there's a lot of uncertainty, too, with the quarterbacks. Nick Foles, he was a little rusty last week. And you also look at Ryan Tannehill, how he's able to come into Tennessee and kind of reemerge and recreate his career with the Tennessee Titans. I think the offense fits him very well. He has a nice crop of receivers to throw to. You got rookie A.J. Brown. You got Corey Davis, who did not play last week. I look for him to play this week. And Derrick Henry got the ball finally. He finally got fed the rock, and it worked out really well for Tennessee. Both teams have good defenses. Both teams have adequate offenses. This is going to be a battle in the trenches, to be quite honest. And I really like what I'm going to pick the home team because I'm kind of split between these two teams. I'm going to go with the Tennessee Titans to get a W out of this one. I don't see too much a favorable matchup for either team. I think this is one of the most evenly keeled games this week. So give me the Titans because they're home.
Last time they met in Week 3, the Jacksonville Jaguars won 20-7. Again, different quarterbacks at that time. Tannehill back in there. It's going to be a closer game. It's going to be 21-20 or something like that. Like this week, I think
it's going to be a
see
really
what happens
good game.
here. It's going to be a close one. All right, so Dallas Cowboys going into New England here. A lot of people think this is the preview of the Super Bowl, but I don't think so.
We'll see what happens.
Because again, if New England under Tom Brady here, not looking so hot, almost falling to the Eagles, who they were struggling at times. Got blown up by the Baltimore Ravens, and Dallas, lost to the Jets and some other teams that were suspect.
Definitely.
I mean, it's up and down here. So, I mean, I want to stick with New England just because they're home and they're tough to beat at home. But Dallas has enough to beat New England because they're not really that unstoppable here. So this is a tough one to pick for me.
Gotcha.
But you know what? I think I might still lean towards New England in this one, just because I think they just have the overall experience in bigger games.
Yeah.
Julian Edelman, I think he's not going to be denied of some plays here, and I think this is where maybe Dak Prescott comes down to earth a little bit. I think they're going to try and shut him down in what he does. And shut down the running game.
I think Dak Prescott's been already brought down to earth. As much as the hype
He's in
was
the
before the
MVP run
season,
right now.
everybody was like saying, "Oh, how great this Cowboys team was going to be." They're definitely easy Super Bowl contenders. They're going to run through their season. We're seeing glimpses of them struggling against teams that we didn't think they would struggle against, and that's got to be a little concerning going forward. What do the Patriots do the best? They take away your biggest weapon. What's their biggest weapon? It's Ezekiel Elliott. It's a no-brainer. They're going to try to stuff this run game of the Cowboys and make this offense one-dimensional, giving them a great opportunity to beat them. Patriots defense right now is their strength. It is no longer their offense. We've always crowned the Patriots as being the best offense in the league for the last 10 years. It's not going to happen anymore. We've seen them struggle the last couple of weeks. Their offense is not if you can put pressure, if you can defend well man-to-man, you can handle the Patriots offense now. But this is going to be a defensive game for both teams. I think Cowboys defense is really good. The Patriots defense is really good. It's going to be coming down to who makes less mistakes. Give me the Patriots. They're tough to play at home. Cowboys got to go in there and try to get a win. But I think New England has something to say.
Do you
about
think
that.
even after they lose to the Patriots, there's going to be another conversation? Is Jason Garrett going to lose his job?
Of course. I don't think that conversation stopped.
Yeah, all right. We'll see. All right, Green Bay Packers now. It's going to be Sunday Night Football, Joe, here. We've got the Green Bay Packers going into San Francisco. San Francisco only has one loss. Green Bay has shown that Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur can get along in
Nice.
running offense together. And Aaron Jones again looks very good this
Very
season.
good.
Again,
It's awesome.
getting together. They're pulling out some wins. The defense looks good all together. I'm liking. I've been riding the San Francisco 49er wave
Yep.
here. It's been
Yeah.
really nice, but I think this is where I get off now. This is my stop.
This is your
Yep,
stop.
this is my stop. Jimmy G, I wanted to see if he could get into some of those high-pressure situations. He ended up pulling out the win last week.
All right.
But this is a different team, and I saw how he played against the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, it was rough. They couldn't get it going. I think Green Bay is going to apply the similar pressure here against San Francisco.
Okay.
It's not going to be that easy for Aaron Rodgers either, because
No.
you're going to have Nick Bosa all up on you and everything too.
And everybody else.
So, but it's Aaron freaking Rodgers. So that's what I'm riding with.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers to come in to San Francisco
I think finally the NFL is on track now with primetime
games, right? Finally, right?
Finally. Packers-Niners, great matchup. I think this is going to be fun to watch. I really do enjoy watching Niners defense week in and week out. They're one of the tougher defenses across the board in the NFL. Packers are going to see that. Yes, they do have Devontae Adams back. Aaron Jones is healthy. You look for them to have big games in this one. They're definitely the go-to offensive weapons for Green Bay. I don't know, though. The Packers' defense has disappointed me. Early on this season, they were kind of lights out, and I was like, oh, my God, this team is really playing well. To now, they're kind of disappointing and can't really stop, have a hard time stopping the run, have a hard time stopping the pass. Not looking too good for this matchup because the Niners defense is one of the best in the league on D across the board against the pass, against the run. They play very well there. And the Niners offense, I don't know what it is, but Kyle Shanahan is definitely the offensive guru that everybody tagged him with, that nameplate. He's every bit as good as any other offensive-minded coach. He's going to have this team ready to go against this Packers defense, whether it be throwing the ball, whether it be running the ball, with Tevin Coleman and company. I'm curious to see if Matt Breida is going to be available for this game. He was out last week. If he does, that's another added weapon for them. And also George Kittle. He was out last week. He looks like he's trending towards being healthy for this game, and if he is, that's going to be a huge weapon for them, along with the receiving core. So you look at Emmanuel Sanders as well, too. He's very hard to defend. So give me the Niners at home. I really like what they're doing. I like where they're headed. That defense is so nasty. I think this is going to be a grind-out game, but I think in the end, Niners will have the edge.
All right, here, Baltimore Ravens going into the Los Angeles Rams for Monday Night Football. There it is.
It's too low. Crank this thing up. Go. Come on. Let's go.
What do you think of Booger McFarland this year, Joe? He's been doing pretty good, right? He's not too bad.
Yeah.
I think he's less annoying, in the booth, than he was on that little traveling
Definitely,
thing
because
or
they always
whatever,
try to talk over Jason Witten.
Yeah, I know. Like whatever Jason Witten said, he's
You're
like,
wrong, Jason.
yeah, absolutely. No, I see that totally different. I don't know what you're talking about. All right, here we go. So we've got the Baltimore Ravens going into the Los Angeles and to face off against the Rams. Rams offense struggling right now. They did get Todd Gurley involved last week, finally.
About time.
But again, the passing game not all there, and that reflects poorly to the defense trying to do everything for them, and they're not playing exactly top tier right now. Now the Baltimore Ravens, they've been really high, and doing well in running games here. So the Los Angeles Rams, their game plan is to try and stop the running game of the Rams or the Baltimore Ravens and get Lamar Jackson to throw it. But he's been able to beat people as well, for that team. So I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens on this one because I'm not impressed with LA this year. I thought they would miss the playoffs possibly this year, and there it is. It looks like they're going to.
Yeah, here's the thing. The Rams are just beat up, quite simply. I mean, they don't have the same team now. They're always hurt. They're going to be without Robert Woods in this game. A depleted offensive line. We've already seen that they got like 3 starters out. Not looking too good, especially when you're going up against a young Ravens defense. And Brandon Cooks is going to be coming back for this game, which is a nice, it's a good narrative for this offense going forward. Now they're getting somebody back healthy, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Cooper Kupp, I expect to have a big game in this one. And I almost want to think he's going to be the only one that has a decent game. Maybe Todd Gurley gets a touchdown or something, but nothing too crazy. Baltimore Ravens, they're the hot thing to talk about right now. Ravens offense, almost impossible to stop so far. No one's been able to figure it out yet. Rams defense is a good defense, but again, I think the Ravens got everything going for them. Their offense is hard to stop. Their defense is starting to come together and playing much better now that they've acquired Marcus Peters with this secondary, with the young linebacking core, with this D-line that keeps putting pressure. It's the Ravens, man. The LA Rams are just too beat up for me to take. Give me the Ravens.
All right, and that's it. That's our picks for the week, and that's our show. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us tonight. Make sure you guys Subscribe to us on YouTube, Football on the No Show.
Yes, yes.
And follow us on Twitter, FB_No. And, if you like us on Facebook, join our group, Football on the No Show. But we have 501 members now. We're 500 strong. So we're keep on going. Invite some more friends to the group if you guys want to share some more NFL stories and news and updates. We do that all here on the Facebook page. Shout out to Mike Tackett, John Turner, everybody for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure. And we'll see what happens with this next coming week here, Joe. We got different picks here, so we'll see how it goes.
It's all going to end up working out to a tie.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to win one. He's going to win one, and there you go.
But thank you all know-it-alls for tuning in. And please, feel free to share the word here. Spread it out. Spread the word here. Help us grow on YouTube. We're trying to build that up, get more exposure on YouTube. So go ahead on the Football on the No Show on YouTube. Hit subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. And go ahead and like the video as well. Let us know you're there.
Absolutely. And we'll see you guys next week for it's our Thanksgiving show coming up.
Let's
It's
go.
a
Gobble,
holiday.
gobble.
So see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Turkey legs.
Join us next week, Wednesday night, for Football on the No with Jim and Joe.